since, so let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get rolling here. I guess I need to do the,
How many does it take to record? Oh, we got 4. Okay.
read the preamble here. So
Do you have the updated one?
I
Mr.
have the
Chair?
one, yeah, that got sent today.
Okay.
Notwithstanding any provision in the EDA bylaws to the contrary, as permitted under Virginia Code Section 2.23708.2A3, Albemarle County's Continuity of Government Ordinance, Albemarle County and the City of Charlottesville's declarations of a local state of emergency, catastrophic nature of which makes it impracticable or unsafe to assemble a quorum in a single location, and the resolution of this body adopted on April 21, 2020, we are holding this meeting by real-time electronic means with no authority members physically present at a single central location. All authority members are participating electronically. This meeting is being held in accordance with Section 6 of the county's Continuity of Government Ordinance. All authority members will identify themselves and state their general physical location by electronic means during the roll call, which we will hold next. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the county's website. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted meeting notice. The public is also invited to offer live comment during the meeting's public comment period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes and must be germane to the matters on today's agenda. The public is also invited to send questions, comments, and suggestions to the authority through the county's Economic Development Office at any time. So, Richie, you want to call the roll?
I will do that. Let's see. Director Long,
Present in the city of Charlottesville.
Director Ray,
Present in Albemarle County.
Director Shreve,
Present in Albemarle County.
Director Munson, Director Imhoff,
Present in Albemarle County.
Director McNaughton, and Supervisor McKeel.
Present in beautiful downtown Jack Jewett District.
Downtown.
So do
All
we,
right, Mr. That's a quorum.
okay, and Jennifer, do we expect the other guys or do we know?
Mr. McNaughton would be recusing himself if he does show up.
Okay,
He was trying to free up his calendar. Mr. Munson did reply that he was coming, but I do not see him in the waiting room.
okay, well, we'll just proceed. Anybody sign up to speak?
We do not currently have anybody signed up to speak. If anybody in the audience would like to speak, if you can indicate now by raising your hand. Nobody has raised their hand.
All right, then on to new business. So the revenue refunding bond for St. Anne's Belfield.
Mr. Long, I'm sorry. Peter Daniel has raised his hand.
Yep.
There must have been a delay. My apologies.
Okay,
I will allow him to talk with your permission.
sure.
Mr. Daniel, can you hear us?
Yes, can you
Okay.
hear? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
When discussions involve the issuance of bonds, as they have in the past, and I believe this meeting will have something to do with that, is it possible that we could discuss the term of the bonds that are being issued? Because it does have an impact on the financing costs, as I'm sure all of you well know. And that would be helpful just to know, because I think the last two was $66 million. And I believe the all-in financing cost at that time was 1.61, somewhere in there. And I just wonder if that could be, was that a 30-year bond, or what maturity was that bond? That would be helpful to some of us that have had some background in finance. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So are we, Jim, I guess, do you want to lead off this discussion, or how do we want to proceed?
Well, I think that I sent you an email, Don, and I
Right.
don't feel it's my role to raise the issue that I raised. Okay, I feel like that's in your bailiwick with all
Right.
due respect. And I also sent an email just recently to all the other board members about charging, the history of charging a fee for a refunding issue. But the resolution is fine. Basically, it's a simple,
Okay.
it's a refi by St. Anne's Belfield. And the resolution is perfectly fine, and the motion that's been prepared by Richie's office is perfectly fine too.
Okay. Well, do we want to hear from the bond counsel first?
I've pulled in T.W. Bruno with McGuire Woods and Sally Woods from St. Anne's Belfield.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, and thank you for having us and arranging this meeting to take up this resolution. We really appreciate it. This is, as I think Mr. Bowling has alluded to, this is a refinancing of some existing bonds that the authority issued in 2009 for St. Anne's. And those bonds were issued in 2009. They were placed with a bank, which at the time I think was SunTrust, and as we know now is now Truist. And Truist and St. Anne's have been involved in a discussion for a number of months over a refinancing of those bonds, and so that's what the resolution before you would approve is a refinancing of those bonds. So they would remain held with Truist. Truist would adjust the interest rate, and they have agreed to amend some of the financial and other covenants that existed as between the bank and the school. This is the resolution authorizes the issuance of these bonds to basically refinance the 2009 bonds. We'll be putting in place all new documentation. So there will be a new agreement that'll be between the authority, the school, and Truist, or the affiliate of Truist that'll be officially making the loan. The school will issue a new note nominally to the authority. The authority will assign that to the lender as security for the loan. The school will make payments directly to the lender, and the bond will continue to bear interest at a variable rate as it has in the past, but it will be a lower interest rate than it has been, which will help the school save some money. And we are, I think the maturity date on the bonds will stay the same as it was. So it is December 1st of 2035 maturity date, and that's what it is today, and that's what it will be after we close. And so with that, happy to answer any questions about the resolution or any of the documents. As I think, again, Mr. Bowling had alluded to, we were really just asking in terms of the fees to try to get a sense of what all the closing costs and ongoing costs are going to be for the school, and know that the authority's fee policy was different in 2009 than it is today. And so just really trying to ask to understand what it is so that we can account for it. And if you're willing to waive it, all the better. But if not, we want to make sure we get you paid the right amount. And as Mr. Mack said, I do have Sally Woods, who is a very new but CFO at the school here as well. And happy to, if you've got questions that I can't answer, Sally may be able to answer.
Mr. Bruno, to answer Mr. Daniel and for our purposes, would you detail the, evidently there must be a fixed term that goes with the variable rate. Could you describe that for us?
What do you mean by,
Well, there's a period of a fixed rate that goes along with this variable rate bond. Is that correct?
well, no, it's just a variable rate on the bond itself. The school has separately and unrelated, sort of legally to the bond, has a swap arrangement with Truist where there is sort of a fixed rate that they pay, but for technical documentation purposes, the bond itself is a variable rate. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And because I can't see her, but I did just get a flash that Autumn Graves, who's the head of school from St. Anne's Belfield, is also here and in attendance. But I think she's still up, and here she's popping up as a either, I guess, a panelist as opposed to an attendee.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions for any of our guests regarding these bonds? All right, I guess that's no questions. So I think the issue with respect to the, as I understand it, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Roger, is that at one point we did have in our rules a fee for these, an administrative fee for these bonds, but as I read the rules, it looks like that expired in 2015 and we haven't renewed it. So I'm not sure that there is, beyond what the other fees, there is one.
Well, I'm not fairly confident, but as I talked to Jennifer, I think buried in your minutes is something extending the fee agreement in 2015. I seem to remember that happening. The trouble with your minutes, I don't know what kind of search function software you have. You can buy very good software to search for keywords, but you have to have very sophisticated software to find this stuff, Jennifer. But I assume you have pretty good stuff, but I know out there somewhere, I remember, just as I remembered the board on the Centera issue charging a $5,000 fee, I remember renewing this fee that was in existence. But I could certainly be wrong, but that's the memory that sticks in my mind.
I too recall something of that conversation, and what I don't remember is if we simply renewed it temporarily and then deferred discussion of any kind of a change, which I think is what we did. But I also seem to recall that we had a pretty substantive discussion about potential changes. So I don't know if we ever entertained a motion to that respect or not.
You did not formally adopt. My memory again is that you did not formally adopt the fee. And we're talking about not an application fee or the issue fee, but a one-time fee for refunding. In this case, for instance, Terry, you assessed a one-time $5,000 fee. You did have a discussion at that meeting. My memory again is that you had a discussion at that meeting and perhaps later about making that part of your rules and regulations. But I do not believe you ever did. And I'm not 100% confident, but I think I do recall that you extended the 2015 fee thing. Whether you extended it or not, though, that's a kind of a how many angels fit on a pinhead kind of legal argument, which we could have. But from talking to what TW said, I'm not hearing him saying that we're in that how many angels fit on a pinhead arena, if that makes sense to you, TW.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right, and I don't want to speak for Autumn and Sally. I think we understand that the authority is an integral part of the tax-exempt financing market, and we just want to make sure that if there's something that is supposed to be paid, that it gets paid. At the same time, just the school's a nonprofit, and if the EDA is amenable to waiving it, as long as that's consistent with what they want, we're certainly not going to say no to that. But at the same time, I think we, the school wants to be a good citizen in all respects, and comply with the rules that the EDA has regarding bond issuance.
Jim, do you or Rich have at hand the wording of the agreement that you think we extended back in 2015? Or
Jennifer sent me part of the minutes from the 2018 meeting, and we came up with a fee amount, but it doesn't say anything about extending that. Or at least
How
I don't
much-
see.
How much
see
was
anything.
the?
And that wasn't the fee they were talking about too. They put the 2015 date is the issuance fee, David. It's
I
not
see.
the fee I'm talking about. And I think that occurred in a separate meeting, but I definitely remember that happening.
And so did we arrive at an ad hoc fee for that one?
Yes, you did. The minutes reflect. I'll let Jennifer, you can read what the
Yeah.
minutes reflect, Jennifer. Just to if you have them, looks like you do have them. This is in 2018, and Rod Gentry really ran this show, and there was an agreement to pay a fee of $5,000. I'll let Jennifer read from the minutes. But again, I think what I'm talking about is they're separate issues. The issue on the issuance thing, which is not really before you, is my memory is that was extended. Jennifer also set me straight. And I always assumed that over the years you've had the clerk for many, many years. The clerk of the Board of Supervisors functioned as the clerk of the EDA, and she was very competent and kept good minutes. And my sense is that after a certain period of time, until Jennifer arrived, perhaps the procedures weren't as good for documents and whatever as they should have been. But in any event, that also may be a problem caused by the EDA essentially being cut loose and no longer having the full-time help of the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Some of you may remember that they regularly attended the EDA meetings and served the same function that Jennifer does.
These minutes were actually received from the clerk's office. So these are the clerk's minutes.
Okay.
And if you want me to read them, I can start. You want to start with the pertinent information I'll just start. Mr. Gentry said that it would be appropriate to discuss what fee would be charged. He encouraged the directors to think of the situation as a modification of the existing agreement. He noted that he had inquired to the county's costs and learned that they are minimus. He estimated that the fee would be between $2,500 and $5,000. Mr. White noted that this being the transaction fee would not affect the annual fee. Mr. Long asked what the annual fees were, to which Mr. Oliver responded that they were in total close to $78,000 and decreased each year. Mr. White noted that this would not affect the separate issue from 2012. Mr. Ray then motioned to propose a $5,000 fee. Mr. Long asked if the fee schedule was still 1/10% up to $40 million. Mr. Oliver responded that if they were creating a new issue, the fee would be $40,000, but the original issued would be retired. Mr. Oliver then asked if they had already earned this year's fee on a prorated basis, to which Mr. White responded that they would still be paying this year's fee. Mr. Mellon clarified that the fee they were deciding on would be a modification fee and not an application fee. Mr. Oliver seconded the motion, and on voice call vote, the motion passed. That is the end of the minutes. I did search subsequent minutes after this meeting and still did not find anything recording to the bonds.
Right, that, the minutes I'm talking about would have been before June 2018.
Yes, this is all.
I don't think it's necessary to go back and go through the needle in the haystack look again. But because that's a housekeeping matter you can take care of by just ratifying and affirming the existing fee schedule if that's what the board desires to do. But that, again, that's a separate issue than what's before you now today.
Well, it sounds to me that we were moving in the direction of adopting even if it was an ad hoc adoption of a modification fee. And citing Rod's comment about a $2,500 to $5,000 fee, is there any indication in the minutes, Jennifer, about how that would have been assigned based on principal of the loan or anything to that?
Just previous to that, he noted, Mr. Gentry noted that this is not typically what the EDA thinks of as a new issue, but rather a modification fee where nothing else changes except the interest rate. Mr. Shreve added that the only other difference was the addition of the liquidity facility. Mr. White clarified that they were not extending the average maturity, and therefore there was no requirement for a public hearing or requirement to go before the Board of Supervisors. That's it. That's literally all that's in the minutes. Prior to that, it's talking about Centera and the amount of surgeries that they do, and pretty much their employees and all.
Well, my take on this, I would certainly like to charge a fee. I'd like us to charge more fees. But with that said, I don't think I can I certainly don't read our rules as saying that we can charge a fee here. I mean, the way that I read the rules is our ability to charge a fee expired in 2015. And if we don't see somewhere else where it's apparent to anyone else that they're coming up, that they should, that what they're going to be paying, I don't think it's reasonable to just say, well, we think this is a good number for the fee. And so that's my take. I mean, I'm certainly, if the board disagrees with me, but I think under these circumstances, if we don't have something that's clear to somebody as to what the fees are before they come in, I don't think we can just sort of make up a fee at this point. That would be my view. But I'm open to being convinced otherwise.
I just want to remind the authority that these fees are really our only source of revenue. And we've had times in the past where organizations have come to us and they've asked for a grant, and we've been reluctant to get into the corpus of our money in the bank. But I've been trying to get the authority to work with the Board of Supervisors, and I think we're making some progress on identifying a way that the authority can generate annual revenue on a consistent basis. And I used to run the Charlottesville Industrial Development Authority, and we had fees based on the face amount of the fee of the issue for the life of the issue. And I don't know what the timing is for St. Anne's, but I definitely think that we should reinstate the annual fee, whatever it was, even if it means putting this on hold and adopting the fee schedule officially. But I think probably St. Anne's can voluntarily agree to pay an administrative fee, but I'm certainly not an attorney. On the scale of things, it's a very minuscule amount of a bond issue.
So Don, you suggested that you think, or I don't think it was a declaration, that our authority to impose the fee had expired. But I thought I heard Jim say that we weren't sure about that.
Well, I think you extended it.
Yes. And if that's true, then I think we're in a position.
Witness the discussion you had in 2018.
Exactly. Yeah. If that's true, then I think we're in a position to adopt a a modification fee if we so desire.
I would
Otherwise,
I would call it a refinance fee.
refinance fee, right? Otherwise, I would be in agreement with Director Long that, if that authority had expired, he's right. We can't do that post hoc, I think, and just say, oh, we want it back and we're going to try to impose it in this case.
Well, the problem is, unless we can find somewhere where it says we did it, I don't know that we can do it. I mean, and I will say that my recollection was I voted to, at that point, I wanted to have a higher fee. So maybe we did approve it somewhere, but I mean, unless we can find it in the minutes that says we did it, our current, at least what we say are our current rules say, and here I can even, can I share my screen?
You can.
I mean, this is what our current EDA rules say, right here, section 4.3, that the $1,000 per 1 million, and then it says an annual administrative fee shall be applicable to the first 40 million, except in the case of refunding, the filing fee shall be applied as a credit against the first annual fee at closing, bonds issued. So I think the issue we were talking about then was what this except in the case of a refunding meant, whether that meant that the fees were in place. And then it says this section shall expire on June 30th, 2015.
Right. Hey, Don, but I don't think that's the current, I don't think that's reflects the amendment that occurred. My memory is sometime contemporaneously with 2015.
Well, I guess we need to find out whether that amendment, I mean, that's really the issue is, do we have any record of that amendment?
Well, I suspect you do, but it's a laborious search, as your clerk can tell you in the minutes, if it's there. Did you ever get a hold of Rod Gentry? He would remember.
I did not, but
All right.
I mean, you need the minutes. If I talk to him, it's still not going to do. I have to have the minutes.
Well, he would remember something like that, and I thought so would Eldon would too, I would think. But in any event, the other dilemma you have here is that St. Anne's is in a hurry, and I'll let the bond council talk about that. So I'm not sure they have the luxury of time to
right
vote this.
Wait on our research, right?
Or it would be fair to them to do that, but that's fairness is your all's bailiwick, not mine.
Well, like I said, I'm we're not talking about, well, I totally agree with Mr. Ray that we need to generate more fees and we need to have more money so we can do the things that we want to do and that we think this organization should do. But I think under these circumstances, since it's not clear that we've adopted a fee structure in advance that somebody could know what it is. And I think that, that the applicant would pay that fee if they knew in advance what it was. It wouldn't make a difference, but I just think we need to be clear about what it is before we do it. And so that's my view.
For a refi.
Yeah. Well, for anything. I mean, I guess we need to know whether this applies, this section is applicable at all.
I don't recall ever entertaining a motion to change the section, except in the case of a refi. So I think that's what we were considering.
Well, but it says, I guess the question is, it says it expired. So I don't know.
Well, but my memory is that you definitely had an action that you took on the 2015 expiration date, which is not at this 2018 meeting, Don.
Okay.
Right.
That's
right.
what I'm trying to do. And Jennifer was lucky to find, I think from the way Jennifer talked, she was lucky to find this, I believe. Were you not, Jennifer?
The note from 2018? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it,
I'm concerned we might be taking action on a document that's not citing the most recent information. So if there's something that was done in the time frame of that 215 amendment where the fees were suspended, then we need to know that and correct these documents.
And I agree with Mr. Ray. One thing, I don't know if it would help, is that I could offer to work with the clerk tomorrow and pull up the probably late 2014, 2015, and early 2016 minutes. And I'm happy to review those and see if we can find if this authority took any action. I don't know if that helps the current situation, but I'll just throw that out there.
I think you're going to find too that there weren't that many meetings that were occurring. When did we go on to a monthly meeting, Jennifer? I think that's relatively only in the last couple of 3-4 years we went to monthly meetings. Before that,
They were quarterly.
Yeah, and then you only met when you had a reason to meet.
It should be easy to find. Is there any way in which we could, let's say that we find what I suspect we will find, and that is that we extended that part of our bylaws and the rules. And in 2018, in light of that, we adopted an ad hoc refi or modification fee for the Centera loan in question. To give Mr. Bruno and St. Anne's some certainty as we search in the next day or two, is it possible that we could entertain a motion to adopt such a fee to be affirmed by the record of the minutes that we still have the authority to impose any fee?
Well, you've got the authority to impose a fee anytime you want to at a meeting. The issue is whether or not you want to give somebody some notice that whether you want to impose a fee. All right. So it's not really a legal issue about whether you can impose a fee. You can impose a fee, but it's whether you want to give the applicant notice that you're doing so and so forth. All right.
Well, let's say we didn't have this dilemma with our minutes and our inability to find the precise language. But that we did find it. Would that notice have come during this meeting today then? Is that what you're saying? Or
well, that's not going to address the issue about the refi in any event, because my memory with the refi is that you did not ever meet again and resolve what to do about the refinance fee, if you will, which is a separate issue from the issuance fee. Okay.
Yes, I recall this in the same manner, and that's why I referred to that as an ad hoc decision back in 2018.
Yeah, and one thing you have to keep in mind too is prior to these Centera new Martha Jefferson Hospital issues, you didn't have any fees other than a $500 application fee. All right. And at some point, just from the minutes that are before you, you changed that also from 500 to 1,000. So I think there's other action that aren't reflected in that 2018 meeting that you took concerning fees. If you look at the very end of the rules and regulations, Don, you'll see that there's, if memory serves me well, there's some reference to increasing the fee for the application fee, which is separate from a refi fee or an issuance fee from $500 to $1,000.
It is at the end.
And that obviously did not occur on the meeting where you talked about the refi fee. So that's why I think there's more minutes somewhere. But again, the issue is, do you want to charge a refi fee? Yes or no? You know, and if you do, then do you have, do you want to do it to this applicant, or do you want to wait for later applicants? And understand now that the only issues you're really going to get in these days and times under the current tax law is government bonds, local government bonds, and nonprofit bonds. I mean, I guess you could get solar and water and sewer and that kind of thing, but we've had very few of those. And, Jennifer may have some insight about that from working with Suffolk, which was more active than we were, and George Ray may too, from working with the city of Charlottesville, which has always been far more active than the county EDA. But largely, you're talking about nonprofits is who you're going to be assessing these fees against. Now, TW, you correct me if I'm said something wrong, which I'm getting out of my zone of comfort here.
No, I think you're right in terms of what the universe of people that you're likely to see as applicants. You know, it's St. Anne's and Centera and the Westminster Canterbury and you know, all of which are 501c3s. Yeah, you're not likely to get a manufacturing facility, and you know, the other types of tax exempt bonds that are out there are more, you know, toll road highway type things that you see in Northern Virginia or down in Hampton Roads and that type of stuff.
So this is Kat, and I'm obviously new to the party and wasn't part of the conversations a couple of years ago. It sounds like that in fairness, it would be good for us to clarify what our fee schedule is and have that be more public. I do notice that this came up, at least in terms of my calendar, pretty quickly. So there's you know, good information on both sides, but I'd be willing to go forward with this and have it, the contingency as David proposed. If we find a legal basis or a paper trail that would allow us to have a fee, that's great. If not, I say we approve it, go forward and update our fee schedule.
You're not going to find a fee, but a refunding fee.
Yeah, I think as Jim said, we have that authority, and so we could unilaterally or in an ad hoc on an ad hoc basis impose it today. But I think it's probably fair to say that we should consider waiving it in light of what we know and what we don't know, and then in subsequent meetings work to clarify our own rule on the subject.
Yeah, you wouldn't actually be waiving the fee because I think a one-time ad hoc fee thing is not, I don't know what
no such thing. Yes.
But I agree with you, this idea of let's have a published and publicly known fee schedule, whether it's for refinance or initial
or
bond
both,
would be great.
or whatever.
Right.
The reason you haven't had more of these, of course, is interest rates have been so low for so long.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and that's the reason you haven't had many EDA issues too.
And in a way, I hope that status quo remains. I'd be happy to enter to deliver a motion
Yeah.
to impose no fee.
Well, so I think the motion, what you were trying to say is to approve the resolution without a
Yes.
fee.
Without a fee, exactly. Yep.
I'll
As
second that.
circulated.
I'll
Yep.
second that motion.
And is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote against it because I'm not convinced that the record is reflecting the most recent action of the authority. And if there's a subsequent action that we can't find because of the housekeeping glitch, then that doesn't make me feel very comfortable. So I'm going to have to vote against that motion.
Okay, understood.
If we could take 2 days or defer this for 2 days and have another Zoom meeting, I'd be delighted to do that. Give us a chance to research it so we make sure we're doing it properly.
Mr. Bruno, could you brief us on the timeliness of this and what do you have the luxury of 2 days to?
I think so. Again, I'll let Autumn or Sally jump in here and tell me I'm out of turn, but I think the goal would be to close this by the end of the month at the latest. And so if you want, I guess so if you want to take a couple of days to look at it and let us know, again, I think that's fine with me. I'm again happy have Autumn or Sally tell me something differently. Like I said, we just want to get clarity on it, and again, make sure we're not running afoul of anything that the authorities got in the in terms of what it charges folks that come through here for tax exempt financing. I guess on the issue, I would ask maybe that if you won't, just to make it a little bit easier for us, maybe just to split the issue and vote just on the resolution as a board, and then vote maybe on the how you want to handle the fee issue separately. But again, that would just be my request.
That's a reasonable request to clarify that. So I'm trying to think of whether we should vote on the resolution first, or whether we should vote on the fee issue first. Any thoughts?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and we have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion that I sort of modified. So maybe you want to withdraw your motion and then we'll try again.
I withdraw my motion.
All right. So why don't we have a motion to on the resolution to start with. So is there a motion to approve the resolution that's been circulated?
I'll move that we approve the resolution.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of the resolution, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, if
Sure.
I may be a pain in the neck lawyer here and ask you to do a roll call on that
Oh,
one.
certainly, certainly, not a problem.
I've got it. Director Long,
Aye.
Director Ray,
Somebody clarify for me what we decided about the fees.
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet. We're just voting on the resolution that approves the bond issuance, but we haven't voted on what the fee is going to be.
But that would be subsequent to this motion?
Yes, we're going to have a subsequent vote on the fee.
Okay, then I'll approve the motion, vote to approve the motion.
Okay.
Director Shreve.
Aye.
I don't know, Director Munson, did he arrive?
No.
Director Imhoff.
Aye.
Okay, and then Director McNaughton is absent. Okay,
All right.
so that's unanimous.
Unanimous approval of the resolution. So now is there a motion regarding whether we wish to impose a fee for this refunding bond issuance?
Do we know under the old fee schedule? Or do we know under the fee schedule that we don't know is old or new or in effect or not in effect, what the annual fee would be for a project like this?
Well, that's part of the issue, is that even the old rules are unclear as to what was to apply to a refund. That's really where under the at least what I have is the current rules, it's $1,000 per million. So, but the language is not clear about whether that would apply to a refunding issuance or not. That's really the problem, is it's completely unclear. I mean, I think you could read it to say that it's just not really clear about
A refund.
or the other. So that's really the issue for me, is that we can't tell what it should be. It's not so much, as Jim pointed out, a question of whether we have the authority or not to do it. I think we can, but is it fair to the applicant to, if they don't even know what it is coming into this meeting? And whether or not we can find a paper trail of what got approved, if we're having a meeting and we don't even know what it is, I don't think that's fair to the applicant.
Hey, Don, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could I just ask if Roger's been really quiet? I'm just curious if Roger has any thoughts on all this.
I do.
right?
think
Is
that,
that okay if I ask that question?
yeah, I'll gladly offer my opinion, Supervisor McKeel. I think a $5,000 fee in this case would be very reasonable. And if Mr. Bruno and his team was willing to pay that fee, if we could adopt that as part of this, we wouldn't have to come back. And then staff can come back at a later date and clean up all this ambiguity around these fees and refi fees.
That a $5,000 one-time fee or annual fee?
It would be a one-time $5,000 fee for the refi in this scenario, and then we'll clean up our house and get it in order at the next meeting.
And of course, we know that that conforms with, at least partly conforms with our actions in 2018 on a similar issue.
So under the old rules, that annual fee would have been $22,000.
Correct.
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
I could support a $5,000 annual fee if these bonds are only going to be out for what, 5 more years?
14.
Okay, I'll support a $5,000 annual fee, and we'll go back and clean up our house. I prefer to take 2 days and review what we've already done. But whatever the majority thinks. I think it's no question it's a worthy cause. I just feel like we have to protect the financial viability authority because we never know what's going to come down the pipe next.
Mr. Chair.
Somebody say they want to.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Sure.
It sounds like that the applicant is able to and willing to allow a couple of days for some additional due diligence on our part to see if we can provide some clarity around the ground truth here. I regret and frankly been embarrassed that we have put the EDA in this position where nobody knows what we actually did. We'll take that and use it as motivation, as Roger said, to clean it up and make sure that we don't find ourselves in this position going forward. We should certainly know what the record is. It is true that we're in a lot different place now than we were 6 years ago. I would say even 4 years ago from an organizational standpoint. But I think the bottom line is EDA really deserves good information, and I think the applicant does too. So that would be my recommendation: is we take a couple of days if we have it, and see if we can't get then a majority, a quorum back together again, and revisit the issue of the fees so they're all working off the same sheet of music. That's my thought, Mr. Chair.
I have no problem reconvening anytime this week.
I don't either.
Yeah, I can do that if that's the will of the group.
I would, if I may speak.
Sure.
We want to be good citizens of our community and are fine with paying this $5,000 fee annually for the life of this term. If that is helpful to you all, as well as helping us to expedite this matter. Quite honestly, we're trying to move this along because the refinancing enables us to have a little more funds available for healthcare renewal for our employees. And so that kind of needs to happen rather quickly. And so that's a piece of the desire to try to move this along, not trying to get in the way of your process at all, just trying to make sure we can provide healthcare at a reasonable price, as many of you I'm sure are familiar with these days.
I would say that's very good additional information.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that. I think if you're willing to do that, then I think we could certainly proceed right now based on that information while we, and then we'll try to get our information organized going forward. So I appreciate that. And I think it would allow us to certainly proceed today.
Not to throw too big of a monkey wrench into the works, I think we can affirm our ability and willingness to to move expeditiously. So I think a couple of days is likely to be maximum delay. And I also think that we'll sort of be setting a precedent here. So we may want to get it right. Whether this is going to be a one-time or an annual fee is a distinct difference, really.
Well, I guess where I would disagree is that the applicant has said they're willing to do this and they've made that
Okay.
offer.
Okay.
I think we can accept that offer, approve it and move forward. And if when we have the discussion, we don't feel that it's appropriate to continue to assess an annual fee, we can always say, well, this should have been a one-time fee. And I don't think they will come back and continue to argue with this if we say that they don't have to pay the money in the future. But this way we'll be done. They can do what they need to do, and then we can figure it out later.
You're right. We should be able to figure that out before July 2022.
Yeah.
And I would just say, I'm sure you could probably get Mr. Munson on, but my schedule is much tighter the rest of the week, so the quorum might be harder to achieve.
Then let's proceed with that and accept that offer. And so I'll just go ahead and make the motion. I move that that we have a annual administrative fee on this particular bond issue of $5,000 a year. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right. Any further discussion?
Well, Mr. Long, in all fairness here, we still haven't resolved the fact of whether or not we're voting on accurate information in these documents, because we don't know what happened. So we could be, your motion could be in conflict with something that the authorities already adopted, and we just don't know. I don't think a 2-day postponement, which bond counsel has already said it's probably going to be okay. That seems to me to be a pretty reasonable way to handle this. So I'm going to vote against your motion.
Okay, I think counsel for the EDA said we have the authority to do this, so I'm comfortable doing it. So, but I certainly understand. Any further discussion? All right. All in
Roll
favor?
call. Oh,
Sure, we can do a roll call. It's fine. I think we know how it's going to turn out.
Director Long,
Aye.
Director Ray,
No.
Director Shreve,
Aye.
and Director Imhoff.
Aye.
All right. So 3-1, the
Motion
motion
carries.
And we will continue to look at this, and we'll let you know if there's a change. We appreciate your cooperation and your offer.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, you don't have any long-awaited vacation plans coming up, do you?
I do next week.
Okay.
So I can sign whatever you need me to sign.
I will be talking with Jennifer, Mr. Bowling then, and we will get you some documents.
Yeah, get them. I'll be out west and unavailable for the next 2 weeks. So now's the time to sign.
We will strike while the iron is hot. Thank you very much.
Sure.
And I'll be available also.
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, we spent a good deal of time talking about, although we don't have anything else listed on the agenda, one of the things that Roger and I had talked about was this particular issue. So I think it has certainly come to the fore as something that we need to deal with at the next meeting. Roger, I don't know if you want to add anything else to this.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Chairman Long, we had already talked about bringing something back to the EDA to clean up our rules and procedures and fees for issuance of bonds and what those fees should be. Staff has already conducted a best practices benchmarking around from EDAs around Virginia. We'll have that data ready at our next meeting, so you'll have a general idea how other institutions or authorities do it. And so we'll have some meaningful data on which to draw some conclusions at our next meeting.
Okay, great. And then the other issue that has come up that Roger and I have talked about, really relates to sort of our funding decisions as we've started to get more funding requests. So Roger, you want to share your thoughts on that?
I do, and this has nothing to do with our partner agencies. They're all doing a great job, and that in lies part of the issue. We've recently funded CIC, the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center, and as you may recall, the CV SBDC has come back and asked for additional funding, which the EDA approved. You have funded Seville BioHub historically. Dr. Hastings is wanting to come to our next meeting in August to request funding. And what I see happening are these decisions being made in a vacuum individually instead of looked at collectively. And when you look at these requests in isolation, they all look good. The issue is we have a limited amount of resources, and I'm proposing that you allow staff to come back with a process for evaluating grant requests all at one time against one another, so the EDA can make strategic decisions on whom they would like to invest in and how much. Otherwise, I'm afraid that you're going to get these one-off decisions that are going to be decided on, but based on who shows up first at your doorstep, as opposed to the way you would best like to invest. This happened in Wilmington, North Carolina, when I worked for the city manager there, and we put together a civic partnership. I have a little bit of experience in this, so I think I'm in a good position to make some solid recommendations to the EDA if you're willing to entertain those.
Okay. That sounds good to everybody? All right, good. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time, everybody getting together on short notice. Anything else we need to talk about before we adjourn?
Roger and Jennifer, I wanted to talk to you briefly about your request of a few months ago, finding local businesses who hire persons with disabilities. So,
Can we call you after this?
yes, call me after this. That'd be great.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.